Welcome to the SIMA podcast. Today we are going to have a conversation with Pandit Arijit Mahalanabis, the founder of Society for Indian Music and Arts at Penn State. My name is Nanika Hira. I am a doctoral student of counseling at Penn State. I am a Hindustani classical musician and a student of Guruji. And we also have Malavi. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Malavi. I'm an undergraduate student. I'm in my second year at Penn State, and I'm an art history and comparative literature double major with a minor in medieval studies. And I'm also a student of Guruji, and I'm currently learning Hindustani music.
So these questions are submitted by the members of the Society for Indian Music, and we are going to talk about Guruji's life and his pedagogy. And if you're someone interested in knowing more about Indian music at Penn State, this would be really helpful. So let's start.
Yeah, so I'd like to introduce you and have you introduce yourself as well. As we said, you are Pandit Arijit Mahalanabis, and you are a Hindustani vocalist and a dedicated teacher, and you've been deeply involved in both the practice and pedagogy of Indian classical music. You're the founder and leader of SIMA, and you work to provide a space where students can engage with music thoughtfully, whether as listeners, learners, or performers. And your approach brings together tradition, reflection, and accessibility, and you like to make classical music meaningful in a modern academic setting. So we'd just like to start by asking you about your journey into Hindustani music and when and how did you begin learning Hindustani music?
Rather than going chronologically, let me start with what you just said and then try to work backwards. I think that a lot of contemporary Hindustani music is kind of steeped in this idea of the guru being kind of superior or extremely knowledgeable about the subject, and then the students have to sort of just listen and follow and imitate. But really, as with any discipline, but particularly something that is as thought-provoking as Hindustani music, it's important for an open dialogue to occur in the music with the guru. And so the title of guru should not carry with it the notion of weight. Right? It's rather, I'm here as a mentor, I'm here as a guide, but I'm walking with you on your journey. So I've always longed for that kind of a relationship with my mentors, and I think I've learned a lot by just watching them and trying to be that to all of you. As far as my journey, it started a long time ago. I was what would be called, I guess, a spontaneous singer. I don't know exactly what the term would be, but I was discovered as a kid just singing what sounded like alap. And ours was not a home that had a lot of Hindustani music per se in that time. There were some records, some LPs and tapes and so on, but not enough that a child of my age would have listened and started mimicking. But apparently I started singing. And so I was sort of discovered by my mother doing this. And so she kind of insisted, despite there being no tradition of especially male children learning music in the family, she insisted that I be taken to a teacher. And so I started studying when I was 8 years old. I had been singing since I was much younger, but it took my mother a little bit of time to convince my father that I should be getting lessons. So at the age of 8, I was taken to a teacher who used to visit the IIT campus in Delhi to teach. Her name is Srimati Shahana Banerjee. She's my first guru. And the incident that I like to relate is that, well, the ruse that my mother used was she said that she would take my sister for lessons and she was just going to take me along. And so when Shahana Pishi, she interviewed all her prospective students, and my sister was more interested in the tricycle that was there than in singing. And then I raised my hand and said, I sing too. And so Shahana Pishi said, you sing something. So I sang something. And she told my mother that, well, I'll teach your daughter, no problem, but I'll teach him for free, so just bring him along. So that's how my journey started. But within 6 months of starting with Shahana Pishi, my father and my mother decided to relocate to the United States. So 6 months into my training, 1981, we all moved to the United States. And I don't think you folks will have a sense of what the United States was like for Indians in that era, because there are very few of us, actually. And there was certainly not much access to music of any sort, Indian arts of any sort in the United States. And we ended up first in Santa Barbara, at UC Santa Barbara. My father had a visiting position. And I think one thing that my mother insisted was that whatever LPs and tapes that we had at home, we had to bring those along on the journey across the world. So she used to sit with me and just make me listen to music, whatever we had at home, every single day. Listen to this. What does this sound like? Try to imitate this. And slowly over time, I started picking up on things. But a child of 9 who is suddenly exposed to this amazing land where there's all kinds of interesting things new things to try, and this thing called a television in the middle of the house. I think I was very distracted, and I didn't understand why my mother was forcing me to learn this music. But I would still comply with her wishes. And then finally, in 1988, by that time we had moved to State College, was a kind of a seminal moment for all of us, the entire family, but particularly I wouldn't say particularly, but very much for me. My father was diagnosed with cancer, and he was given 6 months to live, but he passed within maybe 3 months. And his passing was very difficult to watch, because he was sort of the pillar of the family, and he just kind of fell apart in front of our eyes physically. There's nothing we could do. And I think somewhere deep down in my psyche that triggered something, because suddenly after his passing, a month or two after his passing, I found that the only way I could express myself was through music. And suddenly these rags became things that I would sing without notes, without direction. Like suddenly the rag would speak to me, and this music would just flow out of me. And so that's when I realized what a powerful device this was to express what you were feeling, above and beyond language. This was just an amazing outlet to express what the human heart was dealing with.
So would you say then that was when you sort of realized that music was what you wanted to do? Because it seems like that's sort of the moment that, really shaped your relationship with music. But, like what exactly was it that made you realize that music is, the thing that draws you the most?
I can't really put words to it, but I think I knew at that point that whatever else was going to happen in life, this was going to be the thing that meant something to me. Mm-hmm. And of course, we were a very traditional family in some ways, and the idea of a son of the family becoming a musician was not something that could be even considered. Professionally, absolutely not. You can sing if you want in the shower. That's completely different. So I was my mother kind of understood what was going on, but she sort of compelled me still, and the family in general compelled me to continue my studies, my STEM studies, and I ended up getting a bachelor's degree in computer science and a bachelor's degree in mathematics from Penn State. And later on, I did my master's at USC, also in computer science. But none of that really spoke to me. And my professional career as an engineer also made me realize that this was not what was speaking to me. This was not what I was all about. And finally, I ended up leaving it all. So around 2006, I left my engineering career and decided whatever the world had in mind for me, I was going to be a musician.
I think that is extremely powerful, especially like myself studying the humanities and the arts. That's a really, really powerful story because, I feel like STEM is the thing that's, very much praised, especially in, Indian families. And I think it takes a lot of courage to realize that, you're not going to do what everybody wants you to, and you're instead, going to go against the grain and do something that you know
I think
good at?
I'm going to say something that is slightly controversial, but I think we as Indians and Indian Americans, we tend to gravitate towards algorithms for success. But the truth of the matter is that now, look, in 2026, we're suddenly facing a situation where STEM is probably going to become outdated. We're not going to be needed as scientists and engineers because the technology is now coming to a point where we don't need most of these people. Well, what do we do now? So living by an algorithm is really the wrong way to live. You have to live by what your heart and what your guts are telling you about who you are. And if you don't do that, then at some point or the other, you're going to regret it. At some point. It may be a very small regret in your life, or it might be very large. But I've kind of realized if I hadn't done that, I would have been in a much worse place. Yeah.
You talked about your life circumstances and experiences affecting your choice to become a musician. Do you believe that this also has an effect on your compositions and gaiki? If yes, how have your life experiences affected the music that you create?
Well, I think for one thing, again, there's an algorithm around a successful musical career, right? I mean, if you speak to musicians in India who are successful, they'll say, oh, you have to perform in these venues and you have to have these brilliant students and whatever else. These critics have to praise you. You have to, all these kind of hoops that people jump through. But the truth is that you have to begin by making art for yourself. If you're not happy with the art you're making, then nothing else matters. And so singing to the gallery, singing to the audience is absolutely the wrong algorithm again. You have to be true to what is happening within you. I don't draw big audiences. I'm not a great singer, but what I do understand is that this art has a very meaningful place in everybody's life, whether you're a good singer, bad singer, whatever, you want to play an instrument, whatever. But it has a very meaningful place in your life because, well, I've talked about this elsewhere, but what is the definition of music? And there's all kinds of musicological definitions of music. But what to me is true is that music is that part of human communication where words fail you. And there's nobody on the face of this earth who doesn't experience that. So this music is for everybody. And you have to begin by asking yourself what it is you want to express. And honestly, even if you're a fantastic singer and you're singing for the audience, 20 years from now, nobody's going to remember you. But you will remember yourself. And you have to be true to that.
So what I'm hearing is that your personal definition of success in music is to be able to express through that art form.
Yes, it's definitely a form of expression, but that isn't the end-all and be-all of the music. At the end of the day, expression is also a side effect. It's a side product. It's an artifact that just comes from music. What is the true thing? The true thing is it's a path of sadhana. It's a path of self-recognition. It's a path of realizing who you are. Yeah. What are you doing here? And that's a question that, especially at an institution like this, all of you are grappling with that at some level. Who am I? What am I doing here? Why am I doing this? Whether you're certain or not, there's some grappling that goes on at this age. And even at my age, that goes on. But this provides a pathway to help answer that question sometimes, or give you glimpses to what that might be.
So if you were to go back in time and meet your younger self, what kind of advice would you give your younger self? Because it seems like you've had a lot of these experiences where you maybe wish you could have done it differently. Do you think you would have, studied computer science and mathematics if you knew that you would end up here anyway, back to music?
You are who you are, and I am who I am because of the experiences I've had. I wouldn't ask myself to change anything. I want to go through what I went through. It was tough. It was a very difficult journey. And we as human beings, we have two parts to our brain, right? There is a left side to the brain, that wants to do quantitative work. So I enjoyed my journey as a scientist also, but Yes, no, I wouldn't go back and change anything. I'm not a perfect human being by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm very happy for the journey I've had.
I'd like to say also that I know nothing about math, but I think that the things that you know about math also affect your music in a way.
Yes.
I like, what SIMA does is we also do like, informal lectures and things like that. And when you were explaining, like how things work with Hindustani classical music, you were, factoring in mathematics into it. And, a lot of people were very confused. But it adds a completely different dimension, I think, to music. And I think music is inherently interdisciplinary. And so, I think it's really valuable that you've had that experience.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think I have to tell you, like one of the most tragic experiences I had. Oh well, I'm exaggerating, but I found it very tragic. Was that there was a gentleman who had visited us a long time ago, who was, I think he was appointed cultural ambassador from India to the United States, and he was known to us. He was a family friend, and he came home from DC to State College, and just in talking about things, he said something like, "Oh, what is there to Indian music? You just sit there going all day. Like, what is that? It's just random." And that made me cringe. I didn't say anything. He's much older, my father's age, so I wouldn't say anything. But it just made me think to myself that, wow, we appoint cultural ambassadors who don't know anything about our arts, but also that our music is such a science.
Yeah.
There is so much structure to it. It is not random. And if you don't understand the science, then you're not a good musician, which actually is a thing that plagues our music actually in India today, because a lot of our musicians don't understand the science. Yeah.
Okay. I think this is the last question for this segment, and then we'll move on to the next segment. Do you think your musical journey would have been different if your family had been involved in Indian classical music and had been, coming from a background of, the traditional arts?
Yes, it would have been very different. And I thank the stars that I had the family that I had, because just as we were talking, you need to have an inquisitive mind to really understand this music. And I feel like a lot of our traditional musicians, they're just told, well, this is how it is. This is how my guru taught me, so this is how you're going to sing it. But there's no inquisitiveness about why. And it's really the exceptions that define the music, right? Whether in Hindustani music, whether it's Amir Khan Saab or Kumar Gandharv, or it's people who've said, but why? Why? But very few musicians, especially those who are hereditary musicians, ask this question, why? And so I thank my lucky stars that I was born in the family I was, because I got to think about why. Yeah.
I think that's a really defining aspect of, I think, the way you teach us as well, is that we are able to question these things.
Yes.
And we're not told, oh, good students don't ask things like that.
Oh, no, that's the worst thing you can tell
know.
a student.
Yeah. So I think that's genuinely one of the most valuable things. And the way in which we interact with you, I think, is all the more interesting because of it. Because I think all of us are very curious students, and we're really excited to find out the why.
Yeah, and then the last thing I want to add there is that I'm sure we're going to get into pedagogy and stuff, but it's very important for you to have with your mentors an informal relationship. You have to respect them, of course, but respect flows both ways. Yeah, and although I make a lot of jokes at your expense, I do. That's just part of what I do. It's really important for you to feel like you can talk to your mentor about anything, and so I try to cultivate that in my approach to with all of you.
I think that ties back into what you were saying earlier, that kind of like music education is not filling in of a vessel and just asking us to reproduce, but when we ask why and when we break these myths, then we find out who we are and what we resonate with.
Yeah.
So I think in learning from you, I also feel that difference in terms of when I learned music in India versus learning from you, that I get to question things and find my own voice.
Yes.
That has been very valuable.
I'm glad.
Okay, I'm going to introduce the next segment. So I'd like to talk about SIMA-PSU's student chapter. I'd say that we're vital in connecting the student organization to student life. So what we do is we invite artists for concerts, expose the student community to different traditions of classical music, not just Hindustani but Carnatic as well. We do stage productions such as our Bhanu Singar Padabali student production last fall. We also connect the student community with the larger state college community and traditional music. And we also participate in events with other student orgs and conduct general body meetings with our student community. So I'd like to ask you, though, where this all started, because obviously the SIMA-PSU chapter is different in the way that it serves the student community. But when was SIMA founded, and how do you think it's evolved over time? And do you think currently that it's matching up to the vision that you've had for its growth as a music community, and how do you think it's going to change in the future?
I'll tell you the philosophy behind SIMA. SIMA is a little different. You go to any place that has a large community of Indian expats, there's always going to be an organization that sponsors classical concerts, whether Hindustani or Carnatic, and everybody gets to take a selfie with the artist, and that kind of thing. So sure, that's everywhere. That leaves a lot to be desired, because at the end of the day, well, somebody comes, some famous name comes, they perform, they go away, and that's it. And so you never, it was nice music, but you never quite connect with what just happened. So SIMA's philosophy has always been, how do we create and sustain an ecosystem, an artistic ecosystem? And I've often talked about all of the arts in India sort of being kind of like an ecosystem, right? And the thing that's going on is kind of extinction of that ecosystem, right? Various art forms are kind of dying off. Last practitioners, even within Hindustani music, gharana is dying out. In Carnatic music, certain bani is going away. It's happening in every direction you look at. So it's kind of, there's a mass extinction going on. It's just we as Indians don't understand that it's happening. Because we all have Bollywood and cricket, and that defines us. But what we don't understand is if we look around, we live in an ecosystem of various art forms. And so for Hindustani music and for SIMA in general, wherever I've been trying to create ecosystems. What does that mean? That means, of course, I exist as a teacher. Sometimes there are other teachers in parallel, sort of worldwide. Now there's 3 teachers within the framework of SIMA. So with teachers, there has to be a community of students. And so, of course, it can be a situation where Malu comes and learns from me, Nainika comes and learns from me, and they never speak. Okay, well, that's fine. They get something out of it. But what enriches it is to realize that if Malu and Nainika interact, then suddenly there's further growth that happens. And then what happens from there is, yes, artist XYZ, who is famous for doing ABC, comes to town, and you have a concert or you have a performance, and then the next day you guys come and meet this person and interact with them in their art form. They teach you something. And those memories stay with you. And it's not just you guys that carry those memories, they carry those memories. I've had a number of situations where famous artists have asked me, oh, what happened to that student? I remember this student. Recently, a student of mine posted something on Instagram. I got a message from a very respected artist in India saying, oh, he's playing beautifully. I love the clip that he has posted. And so suddenly you're connected with these people at a deeper level than, they came to town and performed. Yeah. And then that leads to situations where community members who are not learning but attend a concert. Oh, there's a workshop tomorrow. There's an interaction tomorrow. Okay, I love the music so much, or I love the art so much, I'm gonna come and just listen. And then they go have a conversation with the artist, and they might say, I'd love to come see you in Chennai or Bengaluru or Delhi or whatever. And then suddenly there's a connection that's happening between the larger state college community and the artistic community in India. So we continuously try to figure out how to build these networks where people are interacting at much more meaningful levels. It's very easy for me to say, I'm the guru, I'm the person who teaches all these people, you're going to bring this artist to town. And I'll be quite truthful with you. There have been situations where SIMA audiences or SIMA students have really wanted this artist. And I'm just like, oh, I don't know if I want this artist. But I still allow it because this is what everybody is asking for. And so that's the only way to strengthen the network that we have. And so if you continuously step away from being the gatekeeper, the guardian, whatever image you want to create of yourself, and say, okay, I'm part of this network, but let me help drive the energy of it, then suddenly the network becomes extremely strong. And so SIMA is now a worldwide enterprise. It's not State College. It's Seattle, it's Vancouver, it's Bengaluru, it's, you name it. There are people everywhere across the world learning. There's people learning in Japan, there are people learning in Singapore. It's just a worldwide community that's formed now. And it's because we've always wanted a self-sustaining ecosystem of people who communicate and grow the art rather than, oh, there's a guru and then he teaches everybody.
I just have to say that's like genuinely like a very healthy model of mentorship. Mm-hmm. And it's something that I think all of us are really, really benefiting from, not just the student community, but being connected across the world and, to people that come in. And, I think we're all the better for the kind of mentorship that you provide for us.
Thank you. But I think one thing I'm extremely proud of is that people who connect to SIMA almost never leave even after they graduate. They're always like, oh, Guruji, how do I continue my lessons? How do I get involved? Nobody wants to leave this organization, which is, for me, it's a sign that it's a very healthy organization. Yeah.
So there's a lot of value that comes out of the sense of belonging that music creates and the community that gets created out of all of us interacting together, singing together, attending concerts. And as you said, the value lies in the exchange that happens. So I'm wondering about how was your experience with respect to like creating a community with like last year's production and this year's production that's going to happen in November?
Last year's production was more outreach into the communities we serve outside of the university. So a lot of State College people, a lot of Harrisburg people who are not directly involved. But it's very meaningful for me to make sure that the music reaches everybody who's in our geographic area, who's interested, or remotely interested, wanting to give it a try. And so that's what last year's production was all about, that everybody get involved. Come on, everybody, come on. You can sing. Just come and try. And I thought I thought the end result was great.
I have to say, I think we did a great job.
It was great.
I loved our production. And I think we had a really good turnout, and I felt satisfied with what we did.
Yeah. It was a good thing. This year, now I'm looking at all the pieces that kind of make up the ecosystem and saying, okay, what requires my energy right now? Mm-hmm. My energy right now is required with the Penn State students to make you guys kind of very strong, very aware of what you are capable of doing. Penn State is a very interesting place because I find this student body, people are very interested in performing, but they've not had arts education enough to perform well. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people, when they come from India, they want to get up on stage, they want to perform, but man, that's hard to watch or listen to. And it's got nothing to do with their ability. It's just nobody's actually taught them. Mm-hmm. And, we're just all human beings. Everybody is capable of learning things. So what I've been doing is to work with students here to say, it's okay, invest some time in yourself. Mm-hmm. It's not even me that you're investing in or SIMA or something. Invest in yourself. Learn a little bit and just see where it takes you. And you guys can already see where it's taking you. You guys are flying. Yeah. So that's did that answer your question? Yes.
I'm also wondering, what's your message to all Penn State students that want to join SIMA and they're wondering if meaningful engagement can exist between academic pressures of like pursuing bachelor's, doctoral education and also wanting to learn music. So students who don't want to become like professional musicians, but still they have a lifelong passion for Hindustani music.
Yeah. And it doesn't even have to be Hindustani music. This is, but yes, let me talk about that. I think a very inspirational person for me was our guest artist earlier this year, Mallar Bhattacharya, sarod player, and on the side, a medical doctor, which I found, which I always find astounding, right? But talking to him is always eye-opening, because what he said is, like, okay, I have like 20 minutes in the morning, like 6, I have to get up at 5:30 and figure it out. But because he's got 2 kids and married, there's life aside from being a doctor and being a musician. So 20 minutes here, half an hour there, an hour occasionally when it's a luxury. But all that is cumulative and it adds up. And so, the thing is, if you're in a very serious academic program, man, you can sit there and look at medieval manuscripts for, hours at a time, or, deal with qualitative research in psychology for hours at a time. But the thing is, at some point, you're going to face burnout if you do that. There's got to be some other thing that calls to you. And if you don't turn your attention and do that for 20 minutes, 15 minutes, you're going to find that you're going to burn out in your main subject. And that's not helpful to anybody. So, and every one of us, no matter what we do, can find 15, 20 minutes. And that is enough. That is enough. A long journey starts with the first step, right? So.
Yeah, totally. I actually, though, have to say that learning music with you has ended up being almost interdisciplinary for what I'm learning. And it's been really interesting, learning how to sort of find time to practice, first of all, which I just, sometimes I go to my dorm in the middle of the day and I'll do 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and then I'll go to class or I'll go get lunch. And that's just what works. But then I also find that the kinds of thinking that you do about music, I think being an academic or, wanting to be an academic, approaching music in that way, I think can be really, really helpful and really, deepen my understanding of what it is exactly that we're doing in learning music. So I think that's just sort of my personal experience with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I also actually resonate with that a lot. In psychology, we talk a lot about self-awareness, and you've asked us to approach what we're learning with the lens of what is resonating with us and why, and what is it bringing up emotionally. So I felt like that sort of an inquiry makes it less like a cognitive exercise to just learn and reproduce, as I was saying earlier, and more of a fun process that helps you a lot about your inner world.
Yes.
To know about that.
Yes, those are very good observations. And I think one thing I would say is that this is obviously it's a fantastic stress reliever at some level, but it is also intellectually satisfying in a way that is hard to describe. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't. And so those of you who might be listening to this and thinking, "Oh God, I'm studying for 20 hours a day. Do I want something more intellectual in my life?" It is very different. Yeah. It is a very different way of using your mind, and it actually energizes you for the rest of the thinking.
It's very satisfying.
It's very satisfying.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think we're also going to conclude this segment on SIMA to focus on music in the contemporary world, because I know you have a lot to say about that. Mm-hmm. So Nanika, if you, I know you have some questions you want to ask about this.
Yep, absolutely. So I just wanted to know, what are your feelings on the current state of Indian classical music? And you can talk about things you appreciate and things that concern you, whatever is coming up for you right now.
Oh boy. Things are dire. And that sounds very negative. I don't mean it to sound negative. It's whenever you face situations that are of this type, you can look at the falling apart of something, or you can look at this as an opportunity. Mm-hmm. So why do I say it's dire? I say it's dire for a few reasons. One is that in Hindustani music, very specifically, two forces are kind of working to kind of drive the music in a very particular direction. First is that concerts and performances are always kind of held at specific times of day. It'll be in the evening, very few in the morning. Certainly nothing in the afternoon, given the heat in India, for example. Like you wouldn't want to do that in the middle of summer. Well, that ties into another aspect of the music, which is that the rags are tied to specific times of day. And so people end up performing the same rags over and over again. So if it's an evening concert, you're going to end up listening to Bhimpalasi or Multani or Puriya Dhanashri or Yaman, or just a very small set of rags. And so that has reduced the facility with which people perform the repertoire. People are very focused on the set of rags they can perform on stage. That's one thing. Related to it, the second thing is that tends to program the audience. Because we as human beings, when we consume an art form, very few of us are actually there to use this. We're there to passively just kind of take in what is happening. And that is a function of how we use social media, right? Like we're just letting this thing kind of float in front of us. And that happens in the context of Hindustani music also. Nobody's really there sitting there thinking, what is going on? So there's a knee-jerk reaction. Puriya Dhanashri, yes, I love this rag. And so it's a feedback mechanism where the audience craves the very few rags that they can identify, and these people, the artist community, just trains themselves to perform just those rags. So there's a shrinking repertoire, and the audience is only expecting that. Well, that leads to a situation where people start to think this is a very dull music. I keep hearing the same things over and over again. And so the audiences start to shrink. And so, except for very few places in India, I think, as with classical music in the West, like most, I think audiences in India have gray hair, because we're not able to tap into the creativity and the amazing repertoire of rags and compositions that Hindustani music actually has. So these two things have been driving part of the problem. There are other issues. There are many, many other issues with the music. Lack of financial support. Up-and-coming musicians find it very difficult because also the performance venues that are available it's a very steep pyramid, right? There's like maybe 15 people who get lots of concerts in India, but there's so many great musicians, and so very few people actually get the opportunities that they deserve to be heard. So there's a lot of issues in India that need to be dealt with. The main issue is that we deal with it as a performance art. Yeah, it's a performance art, but it's more than that. Like I said, it's a sadhana. So it's a means of understanding yourself. And so I like to say Hindustani music is waiting to become the next yoga. It's the mechanism for understanding yourself. And so the moment people realize that this is something I can do to get in touch with myself, everything's going to change. But we're waiting on the precipice of that moment.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
I'll say that like learning Hindustani music with you has, like even just in what it's been like 2 months, 3 months, something like that, I think I've started to see myself in a different way already. I think I'm becoming more confident in putting myself out there. I think when I started last fall, just with the production last fall, I was kind of like very timid. I would hide behind other people. I wouldn't want to sing outside of a group because I thought, I'm going to mess up. And I still think that. But I think that I've been able to like sit with myself and be more comfortable with myself. It doesn't have anything to do with it being a performance art for me, because for me, it's just like good that I'm, getting more comfortable with making mistakes and, actually enjoying the things that I'm singing. And it's, I think, extremely helpful, more helpful to me than yoga.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah. It's a lifelong process of continuously looking at the mirror and seeing yourself and going, the first reaction is, I have a wart on my nose. And then you have to get comfortable with the idea that I have a wart on my nose. That's who I am. So that's a lifelong process of understanding who you are. And yeah, this helps you understand, make that journey. Yeah.
Completely.
And I also wonder, what are your thoughts about like fusion, collaborations, and forces like artificial intelligence in music?
That's a lot. Fusion collaborations. Well, I think fusion collaborations have extreme potential, but they suffer largely from a situation where the musicians involved do not understand each other's traditions. They're just trying to think of, how do I fit in to this collaboration? What do I bring that could sound cool? But really, in order for fusion to be meaningful, if you're doing Hindustani Western fusion, you have to understand something about Western music. You can't just walk in and start wailing a rag.
Yeah.
You'll end up with, just, oh, there's a backbeat on a rag. I mean, okay, but what? What does that bring, right? And I think there's the innovation of it, or the innovative nature of it. It's been around now for decades, right? This idea of, oh, there's a backbeat against some Indian music. That's been around for decades now. But the novelty of it hasn't quite worn off yet.
Yeah.
But it will. And at that point, it's important for all of us to take stock and think about, if I want to do this with Western music, I have to understand something about counterpoint. I have to understand something about how a cello works against a sarangi. I got to think about how things are fitting together. I can't just do my thing.
Right.
So that's where I think fusion doesn't quite meet the moment. Music isn't meaningful that way. I don't think any of this stuff is going to last.
I see.
Meaningfully. Well, AI?
Yes.
I don't know. Who knows?
Right.
Yeah. Can an AI make music? Not yet. Maybe. Maybe soon. I wouldn't know what else to say about it.
Yeah. So touching back on this idea of mentorship and the guru-shishya relationship, how do you think it's evolved in modern times? And I think, what do you think is the most important thing in a guru-shishya relationship?
Honesty. Guru-shishya relationships fail when either the guru or the shishya is not honest about what they're feeling, what they're going through, what their experience is. Any relationship is based on communication. Honest, forthright communication. And when that goes missing, a relationship fails. And that's true of the guru-shishya relationship also. Traditionally, the guru has always been the dominant force in that relationship. It's a very unequal equation, especially how it's practiced in India. It is a very unequal relationship. It leads to all kinds of situations, and we've all been exposed to very unfortunate things like the stories that we get out of the Me Too situation. Very, very unfortunate. And it has to do with the power dynamic being so unequal. That cannot be the way it is. That just cannot be the way it is. So a guru-shishya relationship is meaningful when the guru is open-hearted, open-minded in giving information, and honest in as much as to say, I don't know. I don't know. Let's go find out. That's super important. On the other hand, the student has to be honest about what they're going through in their training. What is working for them? What is not working for them? Honest. And the guru should never take that badly. If something is not going right, it's incumbent on both of them to fix it. So, yeah. Traditionally, that's not how it was, but that's how it should be. And the guru should never, ever, ever, ever say that, well, that's how it is. Or, I'm telling you that this is how it is. Or this is how my guru taught me. No, and those are very wrong things to say to a student. I'll also add one last thing. It's become custom for people to get up on stage and say, whatever good one finds in my music is because of my guru. Whatever bad that you find in my music, it's because of me. Well, fine. You want to say that, that's fine. But then the guru has to live by the opposite, the dual of that statement. Whatever good my shishya is doing is because they have put in the time and effort. Whatever is not correct in their performance is because I have failed to train them. No guru says that in India. They need to. They need to stand up and say it. Because it's true. We're all human, even gurus.
I'm just curious to know, this might be like, this question might warrant you to go back to your memories with your guru. Do you remember any favorite moment that has had a very strong impact on you? And it could be musically, it could also be like on your personal life. Any moment from your guru-shishya relationship?
Yeah, my guru, Shanta Benegal. Shantadi is a very, very special person to me. And I think all of you kind of realize that when you come home, there's food for all of you. There's a conversation, what's going on in your day. Sometimes people show up with, they're not ready for class. I had to grade all these papers for these undergrads, or like, oh, my advisor really, there's this deadline and they really wanted this information. I didn't practice this week. I have never, ever scolded any of you for that kind of a situation.
Right.
Ever. Because life is life. What are you going to do?
I always, whenever I forget to practice and I come to class on Fridays, and I am, expecting you to be like, oh, Malu, why didn't you practice? But I am never really, met with something like that. It's always like, oh, okay, you know what? It's fine. We'll work with what we have. Mm-hmm. And that's, I'm still sort of, nervous whenever I come because I'm just, but it's never what I'm expecting. And it's always just a complete understanding. And I think that's been really helpful for me.
Yeah, I will meet you where you are and try to push you forward. And there's also another thing that happens to me on a regular basis, which I say nothing about. Students show up, they haven't practiced, they'll pretend like that they have. I can tell. But I never say anything to anyone because they're feeling awkward about it. What's the point of me pointing out that they haven't done their work? Mm-hmm. So you meet them where they are and you push them forward. Yeah. And I was raising this because Shantadi, my talim with Shantadi, I used to go to her once a week, and it used to be a multi-hour affair. And only maybe an hour and a half of it was really singing. Okay. The rest of it was food, talking about music, what are my thoughts on something. I would feel completely free to tell her exactly what I was thinking. She knew when life was not well. She knew when life was good. She's a second mother to me. Even now I feel like if there's something that's really weighing on me, I'll call up Shantadi. Mm-hmm. So that's what you guys are seeing in your, hopefully. That's part of the... I
definitely am.
Yeah, that's part of the talim that I've received. That's how you have to be with your students. My God, they're human beings and they're in a very, very vulnerable part of their life. So you cannot be anything else.
Mm-hmm. A lot of the time, my talim is just coming in, not singing at all. Yeah. Sometimes you won't even turn on the tanpura, and it'll just be like, what happened this week? Why are you down? Yeah. Tell me what's up. And that's, it's just good to have someone in my life like that because, my parents are 3.5 hours away, and it's, I can't always call them up, and it's just nice to have someone in town and,
I would have wanted that if I was in college away from home. I would have wanted that. Yeah.
I think everybody in SIMA is feeling that, I think.
I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah. I think I remember that when one of the members, we were cooking together and you mentioned that this is also a part of Talim. And for me, as someone who has experienced a lot of power dynamic, it was very new that, we are all cooking together with our guru.
Yes. I think once a year, the only... religious thing that we do in the school is Saraswati Puja.
Yes.
And once a year, it's not so much the puja, which is important to me. It's absolutely important because we're saluting the symbol of arts within the Hindu religion. And of course, I will never compel anybody to participate. If you're not comfortable doing so, you don't have to. Not at all. It's a personal thing for me to do it. But really, the puja is there. But what's really important to me is once a year I feed all of you. It's this symbolic, I'm here to nourish you. Mm-hmm. Both for music and if you need food, I'm here for that too.
Yeah, so I think our last question is, do you think that music should be included more systematically in school curricula? And I think generally, do you think that it would be helpful to integrate arts and humanities more into the curriculum? Just because I personally think that it's something that's really important and helps you in your main discipline.
Yes, the answer is yes. I'll talk in the context of India a little bit. And, this can come off as somebody who doesn't live in India and he's lecturing people about what happens in India. I don't mean it that way. And these are observations. The few years that I spent in school in India, I was 8 when I came to this country. I was very lucky to be part of a school in Delhi, Mothers International School, that emphasized a well-rounded curriculum. So there was music class, there was dance class for the girls. I don't think the boys were compelled to do it, but gender stereotypes of that time. But there were visual arts, there was sculpture, there were all kinds of things that we were involved in. And I think somehow at that level, something kind of ingrained itself in me. And that might have been what made me end up being a musician at some level. But why is it important? It's important because now I see so many kids coming from India to Penn State, and they have these ambitions of, making it, securing a livelihood that means something, providing for their family, present and future. That's all great, but education should teach you what it means to be a human being also. You're not an automaton. And we're going to find that out really soon because automatons are going to replace many of us. So you're not an automaton, you're a human being. And part of being a human being is humanities, trying to understand what it means to be human. So I find the Indian education system has failed human beings. It's not just that there's no performance arts in the curriculum, there's no fine arts in the curriculum. It's not just that, it's also there's no philosophy in the curriculum. The history is wrong. It's just wrong. It's not analyzed at a level that really means something. The study of history is an amazing thing to cultivate an artistic disposition. There's just so many things that have gone completely wrong as a result of STEM just taking over that education system. And now, people come to Penn State and they have no clue there's this thing called Hindustani music. And so many people have their first exposure to Hindustani music at Penn State. Why is that happening? It's very unfortunate. So yes, it's important to bring it back into the curriculum. But there's no way to create well-rounded human beings unless arts comes back into education.
And I think also what you've tried to stress for us, and I think what the humanities does that I think is lacking in STEM is critical thinking. And you are not trying to have us, write a thesis, but it's more just like, what exactly about this piece of music makes you feel this way and why? And, can you think sort of critically about what you have to offer to this world and what you have to put on the table? And I think a lot of it is just that I think for the first time people are realizing that what they think is important. And I think that's really valuable for us as students.
Yes.
And I think that's why SIMA is, I think, so alluring to people like us. And I think it's why it feels like a second home away from home.
Yeah,
So I have to say that it's a very valuable community to me.
Thank you. I think I'll also end this by saying that, if you don't believe in what I'm saying, if you have a completely contrary philosophy to what I'm saying, still come. I'd like to hear your philosophy because that's the only way we all grow, by understanding diverse viewpoints and by accepting that we're all different. We're all different. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I'd just like to conclude this conversation. Thank you so much, Guruji, and thank you, Nanika. Thank you, Niranjan, for manning the audio-visual stuff behind the scenes. Thank you to the audience for listening. I hope you found this interesting and valuable, and I hope it encourages you to come check out SIMA-PSU, participate in our events. And this is the first episode in an ongoing podcast series. We're hoping to do more podcasts, and we'd like to continue to have meaningful conversations like this, and just, let people know that this is what SIMA is about, and, that we are trying to, stimulate people's minds by having these interesting conversations. So, yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.